It's that time of week, guys, where we play Trash or Grab, the game where we check the golden and weekly events to see are the items worth grabbing or are they absolute trash. As always with this series, we focus primarily from a PvP perspective, but I will touch upon PvE where possible, and we will touch on all of the vendors that are useful like the Infinite Archive, Scholarium and much more. It's also worth stressing that this is recorded on the weekend, the 30th of August, and the vendor stock do change week on week, so if you are watching in the future, things will be different. For the vendor herself, she will sell a range of different items and you can find her in Cyrodiil. If you want to find the vendor, she's over near this place if you are on Northern Pirate Gate for DC. If you're over on AD, you can find her down in the Western Elsewhere Gate, round here near the stables. And if you're on Ebonheart Pat, she can be found in the Southern Morrowind Gate. As with this series, if you like it and you want to stay up to date, then do like, comment and subscribe so you don't miss out. And I just want to say a big shout out to all of the members who do support the content. They get exclusive builds, guides and early access to videos and much more. And with the gameplay at the start, that is an upcoming video to the channel, so do subscribe because it's really good. For the vendor this week, she sells the Hand of Mephala set. This is a kind of tanking set that when you take damage, you snare people and you hit them with breach and you do poison damage. This does scale off your resistance, and it's worth noting that this isn't really like a damage set. It's kind of like a utility all in one. So I wouldn't rush to buy this basically. It's kind of fun, but it's not that good. We then have Soulshine. Soulshine used to be fantastic. It's kind of lost its power just with better sets nowadays. But when you activate an ability of a cast or channel time, you get about 370 weapon and spell damage. This used to be fantastic on Templar because jabs would proc this because it had a slight channel, so would the beam. Nowadays there are just better sets anyway, so I wouldn't rush to buy this, and you can buy this from other players anyway. We then have Necklace of the Air. The 5-piece has 2 effects. The first one is a bit of recovery, and the second one is when you roll dodge, you increase your damage by almost 400 for 6 seconds. This isn't bad, it's quite a decent set for Nightblade, kind of roly-poly builds. Is it the best damage set? No, there are better sets in all honesty. If you're front bar on a damage set, Shattered Fate is way better, so utilise that. So it has some uses, but it's more niche, and I wouldn't rush to get this. We then have the Splunker Necklace. This reduces the cost of all of your Undaunted abilities. When an ally uses a synergy, they get some stamina and magicka back. It's kind of okay, it's not really good in any use for PvP or PvE, but it's there if you want. We then have 2 monster shoulders this week. I always recommend consider shoulders more than helmets just because you save Undaunted keys and they can be quite tedious to farm. This is Storm Fist. When you deal damage, you have a 10% chance to create a Thunder Fist that crushes the enemies. It does quite an initial hit and then a big amount at the end, and it has an 8-second cooldown. This is more of a PvE set. DPS wise, this is not bad. It's quite an okay PvE DPS set, so I wouldn't sort of overlook this. If you're new to the game or you don't have many monster sets that are decent, consider this. This will get you some good damage. It's not the best, but it is very useful. And what's also worth stressing is that this works at range, so again, you don't have to be melee. We then have the Engine Guardian. When you use an ability that costs resources, you have a 25% chance to summon a Dremor automation that restores magicka, stamina or health every 0.5 seconds for 6 seconds. It has a 10-second cooldown. In PvP, this is fantastic, because if you need stamina to move around, that's going to help you if you get that. You often need magicka to at least heal if you're in a stand build, or if you're doing damage with your magicka, you need obviously the magicka to heal anyway or do damage, so it helps you there, and the health is just useful. What's also good is that this pet is targetable, and that means that if someone tries to hit you, they can end up hitting this pet, and because the pet tethers to you and is really close, it actually absorbs a lot of incoming damage. And so if you don't have any monster set going, this is really good. It's basically like a defense and sustain set in one. PvE wise, I haven't seen many people use this personally, so I would suggest if you are after a fun set that's a bit trolly against other players, this is pretty good. Do consider this. I'm going to buy the missing piece just to save me a key. And then what we're then going to do is hop on over to the Infinite Archive and check what is for sale there. We'll then head to the Scholarium and then tell our vendor to wrap it up. As with this series, if you do like it, then likes and comments are really appreciated. And if you haven't done so, do subscribe so you don't miss out on the upcoming builds and guides, because there's much more on the way. In order to access the Infinite Archive, you need to find Apocrypha, and it's in the kind of the centre of the map near the top. When you get inside here, you will be looking for a vendor called File All. This vendor will sell a range of different things. We focus primarily on the scripts and the leads because they impact gameplay, and sometimes you can get some good stuff. It is worth stressing, however, that this vendor has its own currency and you have to interact with this like game if you want to actually buy stuff here. So I would always kind of just be mindful of that. Sometimes some really good stuff, but you do need to be mindful.
Don't complain.
This week they have the following stuff. They've got a lead for the Mad God's Dancing Shoes and the Shapeshifter's chain. The Mad God's Dancing Shoes give you loads of random just effects when you roll and do stuff. I wouldn't rush to get this. The effects aren't that good and it's too much RNG for PvP. PvE wise, it's just a niche like mythic anyway, so don't rush to get this. The Shapeshifter's chain, it sounds really good on paper. Yes, you get really good like ult reduction if you turn into werewolf or vampire or colossus, but the actual benefits when you're inside those forms aren't that useful. And to use a mythic for that, you better just run in Monomyth. You better run in, if you're an Okator, you better run in Sea Serpent's Coil or Saint and Seducer, because you'll get more benefit when you're in those forms with that mythic than this mythic. All this mythic does is lets you get into those forms quickly, namely werewolf, but as a werewolf you're trying to stay in werewolf the whole time anyway, so you don't want to be getting out of it. So I wouldn't rush to get this. We then have a few scripts this time. We've got Brutality and Sorcery, Uncertainty, Pull, and War Mage's Defense. Brutality and Sorcery, I wouldn't rush to get this. There's very few times when you actually need it. It's only more niche builds where you're on a heavy attack build where you might use this. But beyond that, I wouldn't rush to get this simply because you've got Degeneration, which has it. You have most classes have access to a class damage boost of some kind, or you've got Rally from the 2H. So there's multiple ways to get this for free. Uncertainty isn't that useful because it only really works in PvP. It reduces people's crit damage. Again, doesn't work in PvE. PvP wise, it's not going to be a big factor because the stuff you can put this on isn't that useful and you better just go for damage. So I would skip this. Pull is pretty decent. You can get this quite easily anyway. It drops a lot, and this basically just gives you ability to pull people in like Silver Leash or the DK chains. If you use Soul Burst, you can then use this as an AoE pull, a bit like in Dark Talons, or a bit like the Void Bash that you get. So it's kind of similar to that. It's not as good as Void Bash, but it gives you an option. War Mage's Defense, this gives you shields on certain skills such as like Explosion. It's not that useful because the shields get halved in PvP. PvE wise, you don't really need the shields. It's there, it's nice, but I wouldn't rush to get this. We're now going to hop on over to the Scholarium in Nevaeh. This is a place that you need access to with the Gold Road DLC. It was available in the Crown store. I'm unsure if it's still there, but if it is still there, do get it whilst it's there because it's very useful as a system. This will allow you to create and modify custom skills with some limitations, but it really helps round out builds, especially for PvP. So this is a really kind of must system when you add in subclassing. Once you get inside, you want to walk up to the altar. You have to have completed the Indrik wing at least once on one of your characters, doesn't matter which one, but at least once to get the achievement. And then a vendor will appear who's called Fernando. Fernando will sell a range of different things over here. And Fernando has, this week, all the Grimoires as per usual. And he said Encourage, Taunt, and Fences Parried. Courage, very, very good. Get this. This is very good. I've bought quite a few of these already and I've put them in the bank. This is kind of one where it's a free way to get some damage on certain builds in PvE or PvP. And it's quite useful, so I would get this definitely. Taunt, I wouldn't rush to get this. You can get this quite easily. There's loads of good taunts in the game anyway. Silver Leash taunts people. You've also got Puncher, which taunts people, reduces their penetration. So you don't need this, personally. You then have Fences Parry. This is a fun one. Is it the best? No. When you utilize the skill with this on, your next incoming direct damage is deflected. It means you take no damage. It has about a 3-4 second cooldown. So basically, if you're using this as a spammable on 2H Smash, for example, or the Dual Wield, when you get hit and you keep spamming this, every third hit you just ignore. So it's like a 33% damage reduction. It can be effective for some PvP specs. It's just they're better scripts, so you often don't see this. So for that reason, I wouldn't rush to get this. And a little tip, if you know this already on a character but you really want to buy it, switch to a character that does not know this. You can then buy it and chuck it in the bank. It's also worth noting that if you don't know any of these are going to be significantly more expensive, so at least learn on one character before you mass buy it, because it will save a lot of gold. The final place that we need to check now is going to be the Imperial City. And here we look to see, are there any good things for sale, namely leads. The items are generally expensive and I normally recommend avoiding those. Once you get here, you want to look for the anvil and the fire symbol. And you want to move around and you're looking for the vendor called the Telvar Merchant. This vendor sells mainly some leads that are kind of useful, sometimes some really good ones, so it is always worth a quick look. This week she is selling the following. She has a lead for Spalder of Ruin and a lead for Thorn's Lark Cladding. Spalder of Ruin is a PvE set. This is a tank mythic that when you utilise this and you hit sneak, you put a big aura around you that increases everybody's damage by quite a bit. It does, however, reduce your sustain as a tank. The more people that get buffed, the more sustain you lose. It's very, very, very good for dungeons. I utilise this heavily in my tanks build, so I would get this. That said, this lead isn't too hard to farm, so I wouldn't rush to buy it now. Like, you could probably just farm the lead quicker than you could farm the Telvar, but if you don't do PvP, you hate it, this is an option. You could just ask a random group to carry you through a few bosses. You get 3 or 4k kill within 10-15 minutes. You could probably get enough, so you can get this quite quickly. The second one is Thorn's Lark Cladding. This is terrible. When you sprint, you run through people. That's pretty much what it does, if I recall. I wouldn't get this. And in the scripts we have Brittle, Expedition, Martyr Target, and Assassin's Misery. Brittle, it's decent. I wouldn't rush to get this. I use this on my explosion build, but again, I wouldn't rush to buy it just because it's 10k Telvar is quite hard to get, and you only utilise this on a very few skills. Expedition, you can get this very easily on lots of in-game class skills already, like Race Against Time, Channel Deceleration. You got Path of Darkness, which you can turn to Twisting Path. There are many ways to get speed, so I wouldn't rush to buy this. It's useful, but it's not the best. Multi-target is very niche. It's only really used on shield throw and on like bash or tank builds where you throw the shield and you get a heal back. I utilise this on my Goliath, which is a members exclusive build with 140,000 health, which is obscene, and this uses that script. You throw your shield, you hit 3 targets, you get 3 big kills back, like 20k each. It's stupidly good for that build, but it's very, very niche. We then have Assassin's Misery. This is primarily used on Elemental Explosion. When you utilise this, it will give the burn and the chilled and the concussed to all people hit, so it's just a free bit of bonus damage. There are better scripts. Class Mastery is way better if you are obviously a sorcerer class. That's like perfect. If you're not a sorcerer class, then this becomes the next best thing. So you can use this if you're not a Sorc on those kind of explosion playstyle builds. But yeah, that is it. That's what we have this week. There's a range of different stuff. Some things are a bit like mid, some are like a bit better, but I wouldn't like rush to buy anything personally. It's kind of a bit of a naff week in all honesty. As with this video, if you like what I do here, likes and comments are really appreciated. And if you haven't done so, do subscribe, it really helps out. And I just want to again say a massive thank you to all the YouTube and Patreon members who support the channel. If you want to do that, you get exclusive access to the builds, early content, and much more. But I'm going to kind of wrap it up here, so I'm going to say a huge thanks, and I'll catch you in the next video or stream. So thanks for watching, guys. Take care, and bye.